I got a funny feeling. I got a funny feeling. Yeah.
Hello, people. I'm Jaby KOAY, joined by ACHARA KIRK.
What's up?
And we are interviewing Ayesha Sood. Is that how I say your name?
Ayesha, yeah.
Ayesha Sood.
Ayesha.
Okay. We'll just get started, I guess. How are you? How's your evening going?
I'm good. It's not been bad. It's a bit of a hot day today, but not so bad.
Okay, wonderful.
How are you guys doing?
Yeah, we're doing well. It's getting warm over here, but probably not as warm as it is over there.
You'll be surprised. Check London versus Delhi today.
Okay. So you started out with The Duelists, which is about Indian musicians, and then decided to focus on people who are harder. So you did Toughest Men in India. And then you decided to go even harder with Indian Predator, the Butcher of Delhi. Is everything okay at home, is my first question. What made you decide to tell this particular story?
You know, I come to this as a complete fan of the genre. I'm a complete fan of true crime. And actually, Vice India approached me to do this project. They had built this idea of Indian Predator, and they had a pool of stories that they were in the middle of various stages of development and research with. For many reasons, like you have a process of filtration. So you see which ones you have good like narrative heads for, you have good archival for, you have good source material for, and through that filtration, this story kind of was up there. Also, this was in the middle of the pandemic, so a lot of the story happens in Delhi, and I'm based out of Delhi.
Okay.
So it just also geographically it kind of made sense to for me to kind of explore this. I hadn't heard about this story, so I was quite surprised, and it's such a audacious crime or series of crimes. I was insane that we haven't heard about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, why do you think people are so drawn to this genre? What is it about it that makes it so captivating?
We have, in the recent past, got a very high level of filmmaking in this genre. It's been elevated to a really cinematic experience. So I think part of the audience draw is that you make good things and people will come and watch them. But I also think that, true crime is the kind of subject matter that you can look at so many aspects of the human sort of experience through,
Yeah.
It's an extreme human manifestation, but you can look at family, you can look at culture, you can look at country, you can look at socioeconomic context, the psychology, there's so much of it that you can experience on a very human level. So I think part of the fascination, is there as well.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, I used to work in reality TV, and there is so much that you shoot in reality TV to get the good stuff. And so I'm always curious about the behind the scenes of films like this. How long are you talking to individuals before they get to the nitty gritty in their testimonies that they give you? And how much is left on the cutting room floor?
So we had really long interviews. Part of that is because, in this, you actually try to tie in a lot of facts. People have to actually corroborate what the other person is saying. Otherwise, a lot of it doesn't make sense when it cuts together.
Yeah.
So you actually have to go back and you have to question them a bunch of times to get to the right answer that you need to. But before that, there's a process through which we do pre-interviews, we build a relationship, we get comfortable with them, they get comfortable with us, they need to trust us,
right.
And then you shoot. It's not, you're not going to turn on a camera and they're going to be start telling you,
right. Right.
Yeah.
Everybody does have a certain facade,
Yeah.
and it takes a little bit to get people comfortable to get talking to. I think it's a process of trust building, but it is also hours and hours of interviews so that you can actually get what you need.
Wow. And then, so when you start the filmmaking process on something like this, do you come in with an idea already? Or does it kind of reveal itself to you as you're talking to people and getting these testimonies?
It's a bit of both. You go in as prepped as you can go in. We did months and months of development and research, talked to lots of people. We had a pretty solid structure of how we wanted the episodes to play out. But as it happens with documentary, you go on the floor and everything goes out of the window. So I mean, literally we found new threads to the story, new characters, the people that we said we're going to talk to refused to come onto camera.
Wow.
So all of that happens. And then you have a long edit process where okay, this is the material that we have. How do we weave it in? How do we make sure that the hooks and the, beginnings and the intros are all working? Part of the lesson is to be adaptive. You have to be able to adapt to what is coming your way.
So you said that sometimes you get people to agree and then they just not show up, or they're like, oh, I'm not going to do it anymore. How much like aggression do you have to employ yourself when you're dealing with people who are being non-compliant after they already agreed?
With a subject like this, you have to be a little bit careful because it's people's personal tragedies.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So our personal, like me, the research team, the development team, all of us, our modus was like, let's not push too much.
Right.
We try.
Right.
We try. We ask them again, and we, as much as like is okay, but like, you know, like if it was a different kind of documentary, you possibly would like do a little bit more arm twisting. I think in this one, it's a bit tough.
Gotcha.
You have to
Right.
respect people's like place.
And do you feel like, because you mentioned having to ask people like the same questions over and over again sometimes to like corroborate information, do you feel like a detective yourself? That's the first part of my question. And my second part of my question is like, you're getting people to open up. Do you feel at all like, I'm trying to find the right word for it. No matter how I ask it, it's going to come off like a weird question. But do you feel a little bit like deceiving or like a trickster because you're getting them to open up about something they might not necessarily want to talk about?
Yeah, I think you basically have made my dreams come true. I'm a closet detective. So I do think that I'm a bit of a detective, but I don't know if it like, I mean, yeah, okay, there's a little bit of piecing together and detective work that happens, but it is supported by a team. I think what we did try to do was along the process of our pre-interviews and talking to them about what we're doing, we were trying to be as open and as honest as we can be about what we are doing.
Gotcha.
Obviously, what ends up as the end product after cutting things and making a production is going to be vastly different because they are also going to hear stories from other people, right? Like they're going to like hear other parts of the narrative, which they've not heard together. That may be surprising to them. But I don't think that anything that we put across from a particular character should surprise them so much. You know, nothing is out of context. We haven't twisted what they've said. It is what it is as well.
Gotcha.
So I would imagine that when researching something like this and talking to a lot of the people that were affected by this, it can get pretty dark. How do you deal with like, you know, disengaging yourself from all that at the end of the workday, or does it kind of linger with you?
I think it does linger. A lot of things linger, and when you experience somebody's personal narrative, you know, face to face, it's very different to when you're like, you know, 2 years later cutting it and like you're putting music to it. It's a different experience. So I think it affects on many levels, but I also think, you know, when you get so immersed in something, you spend so much time with it, you do become a little numb to it by the end of it. So there were a lot of feelings and a lot of experiences. I think not just me, but the entire crew. We found new things and heard new stories that were not like in the files before. So when you hear that, like, and you see it, like, I think the crew and myself, we did go through a bunch of like pretty intense moments and experiences. But you know, that was like 2020 now.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you kind of hit on something that made me want to ask my next question. How do you feel when you revisit certain locations where you know something took place, or when you're recreating scenes based on stuff that you know actually happened? Is there a point of desensitization that you reach, or does it stay uncomfortable the entire time that you're exploring these locations or recreating these scenes?
When we went to the real locations, it was definitely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
There was, I mean, there's an intense brutality to this, to these series of crimes. And we did go to the real location and we did meet a lot of the real people, and it was intense, for sure.
I mean, that sounds chilling. The documentary looks very slickly made. I feel like a lot of the time when I see documentaries come up on Netflix, there is this kind of, I guess, like an air to them where it looks like entertainment. It's something that is appealing to people who maybe don't usually watch documentaries. Is that something that you take into account when you're filmmaking or like going through the entire process?
I don't think I'm at least like consciously thinking about that. Like I'm definitely thinking about like, what would I sit down and spend like 3 hours with? And like want to be immersed in. In a way, it is in the package of entertainment. So it needs to keep you hooked on your seat and watch, right?
Yeah.
Right. I personally deliberately stay away from the news just to keep my head out of the negative space. you're deep diving into this stuff, like hardcore. Does it ever make you paranoid in your day-to-day life? Like, how does that affect you? Just like, you're done with the documentary, you're dealing with real life again, like everybody else, like us normies. Like, how does it affect your daily life?
Deep diving into like a lot of things like this is kind of like part of my nature. It's kind of like why I do it as well.
Yeah.
But I play a lot of tennis. I cook. I have fun.
Okay.
So I mean, like I'm not 24/7 doing this. I have some good times.
Okay, just balance out like the good and the not so good.
Yeah. I guess my last question is, and you might have answered it already, but I feel like it's a good question to always ask filmmakers, like, what was the most challenging part of telling this story for you?
I think multiple things. We kicked this off in the middle of the pandemic. We were working remotely. We were having like development meetings and like writing sessions and like meetings on Zoom. And I never thought this is going to happen. I was like, this is never going to work. I don't know what is this nonsense Netflix series? Like, I was like, okay, whatever. I'll show up on the meeting. And then as we started and we like actually got on the floor, Delhi had the hugest protests that we've had like in decades, which was the farmers' protest.
Yeah.
And like almost all of North India was shut down. We couldn't fly drones. We had curfews. We couldn't get crews out. Like we had to literally stop production. We then moved into one of the harshest winters that the North has had in years. And we were shooting in Bihar and Delhi at like with 3 a.m. call times. So I was just like, at every turn, I was just like, this is not going to happen. Like, how is this going to happen? And then we got hit with the Delta wave in India, which is really brutal for everybody.
Wow.
So lots. I mean, like on a physical, actual shooting level, like that we actually did it. That Netflix and Vice saw us through it was incredible for everybody. But I think also, like on a human level, just the brutality of it. Like if you look at some of our characters, they're not interested in this documentary. They're not going to watch Netflix. They're just like, let us get on with our lives,
Yeah.
Like, so a lot of people don't want to talk about it.
Right.
They don't. And I think that's tough. That's tough when you're so into it and so invested in telling a story. So to lose out on important voices, that's tough as well.
I guess my last question is, I said that a couple times now.
I know.
I'm sorry. This is truly my last question. Where does Ayesha Sood go from here after this is done?
I'm actually working on another docu-series, but I can't talk about it just yet, but it's not crime.
Okay.
Okay.
It's a little bit lighter and fun.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate you answering all our questions.
Thank you.
Thank you both. It was really nice.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Hopefully you enjoyed that and got some insight. So check it out. It's out on Netflix now. Thanks again for hanging out. I'm Jaby KOAY. This is
ACHARA KIRK.
Peace out.